4020.
Oh, breaking news from the Castleford Tigers.
Not yet.
No, from the Castleford Tigers, which you can guess what it is. No one's told us
Is it
about
Liam
this.
Horne suspension?
No, you can guess what this is because people have not told us, so they're not paying attention to the internet. But I'm just double checking by going onto the Castleford Tigers website. But things have changed at the Castleford Tigers, and Sky Sports' Danny McGuire might now be more than Sky Sports' Danny McGuire because he's not Castleford Tigers' Danny McGuire anymore.
Oops.
So
it didn't work. What you said last week, then, did it?
I got all the time in the world for Danny. Always admired everything that he's done as a player. I just don't know where you go if you keep getting rid of people. I don't know why Craig Lingard was dispensed with. We were told that Danny was coming in because he had better relationship with people in the game and was going to attract players. The fact that Chris Chester's now been brought in, did that undermine Danny McGuire?
Here's the Castleford statement. Following a board meeting today, Castleford Tigers can confirm the departure of Danny McGuire as head coach. Chairman Martin Jepson commented, "It's been a challenging season, but in particular the result and performance in last week's game against Huddersfield were hugely disappointing to me and everyone involved with the club. The board felt that a change of direction was therefore needed. I would like to put on record my thanks to Danny for his hard work at the club over the past 2 years, both as an assistant and a head coach, and I wish him well in the future. Chris Chester will take over as head coach duties on an interim basis with immediate effect." And the problem is they haven't got the players, regardless of who the coach is. And you mentioned Craig Lingard
and they
earlier.
didn't have them last year. In fact, they had less last year.
Can't get rid of 26 players though, can you?
What do they want to be? Because as a club, I have no idea who Castleford are or what they want to be. And it's if you keep changing the coach, you're not addressing the issues.
The other thing I would say is that I've cringed at times, and I've said this before, haven't I, on the podcast, about some of his comments in the press. And
yes, that's naivety.
Yeah,
and
I wonder,
frustration.
as a coach who's coaching Danny, because I think you need mentors
that's
and
what
coaches.
Chris Chester might do, but clearly now he's taking the job.
Because I just think he's probably been too open in the press.
Yes.
And probably needed to shoulder a little bit more himself, or shield a bit of the players, and then use that with the players to...
Well, we said that last week, that they'd lost heavily to Hull KR, hadn't played well.
Mm-hmm.
They then played it really, really well against Wigan, and had it within minutes of beating, the team that won every trophy last year. But he came out and lambasted the referee. I would have said, I'm just really happy with the fact that this week,
proud of the effort. Yeah.
That's what we're looking for. That's more of who we are.
Exactly.
Once you've lambasted the referee, you've taken all the pressure off the players again because you blame somebody else. You then play Huddersfield and you're rubbish. Where do you go?
Well, all this week was about Liam Horne, wasn't it? And should he have been banned? Should he not be? He broke the rules. I mean, mate, we don't know what's going to happen at the appeal tomorrow.
But you see,
again, he broke the rules.
Doesn't that sum up? Forgive me if I haven't read this right. 2 players get charged with very similar offences. One's from Hull KR, and he takes with him Neil Hudgill, who is a lawyer, to argue in the most persuasive manner that what you think the player has done, he hasn't done. And the match review panel, or the disciplinary, say, that's a really cogent argument. We get what you're saying. You backed it up with some evidence. You know how to do this game because you're a lawyer.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Martin, we'll downgrade your charge. You didn't really need to come here. Off you go. Liam Horne goes in on his own.
No.
And so, Liam Horne goes in without the same kind of backup of a lawyer knowing exactly how to play the system, and says, "Gents, I didn't mean to do it." And I go, "But did you do it?" I said, "Well, yeah, I did it, but it's the guy was laughing. He wasn't injured. I know him. And here's a letter from the opposition saying, please don't charge me."
And he didn't have the letter at the time, he did it.
But for all I know, Castleford did send somebody in with him. It might have been Danny Wilson.
I think it was Mr. Chester and Mr. McGuire.
But it's not the same as taking in someone who knows the legal.
The only way you can defend it is to argue he didn't do what he did.
And if he did,
but he did,
you take a punishment, don't you?
Brilliantly, of course, tomorrow Castleford are hosting their meet the coaching staff session with the supporters club. So good luck to Chris on that.
It's the one last chair. Is Brett Delaney staying?
Brace himself for the moment. He's been very vocal on social media over the last couple of weeks. I don't know if he always has been. I've just noticed it after the Liam Horne thing. But
No, it's just that he and Danny were a package.
Yeah.
That was all, so I just wondered whether...
Classless Cass, says Ian. Got that on T-shirts as well.
So come on, get the articles written.
Yeah. Oh, what, five
Yeah,
coach? James
yeah.
Ford,
Yeah.
Brad Arthur,
Oh no!
James Ford, who was at Hunslet.
James Ford. Was he?
To wear,
there you go.
to wear a nick out. He's been in the country.
Did I-
so
Yeah,
we
Tony
must-
Kemp
we must-
said
Oh
he
yeah,
got
Tony
a job.
Kemp.
Tony
Kemp
Director
said he
of
Yeah, but
Rugby.
I remember Tony Kemp training
Yeah.
a terror at Wakefield. In fairness, he had less money than Danny
John
McGuire.
Keary's just got a job at Batley, so that's no good.
So we've got James Ford,
Steve McNamara.
Steve McNamara.
He's available.
Yeah, Steve McNamara. Joel Tompkins. Sam Tompkins. Logan Tompkins. Sean Wayne. Sam Burgess.
Sean Wayne Tompkins.
Dowell Powell.
Lee Radford. That would bring him
Paul
back,
Cook. Lee Radford. Who else is around who's a coach? Who else do we know?
Oh dear.
James Simpson. Stick his name in the list as an outsider. He's got the badges. He's got badges. Won a Super League title.
I just think it's
more than any other Castleford coach
I
has done.
think Danny has been quite naive because A, he cares, and B, it's his first head coaching job and he's so wanted to make a success of it.
It's Mark Applegarth at Wakefield. It couldn't work.
But what are you achieving? At least,
who do
at
they
least
appoint?
wait till the end of the season.
Who do they appoint now? Because
Who wants
when
the
they say
job?
Chris Chester's in temporary charge or whatever, that suggests that he's not going to take over. But if you're looking from the outside and you go, all right, Chris Chester's coming as director of rugby, that's interesting. What's going to happen next? Because you know what's going to happen next, because we've seen it in all sport all the time.
But the issue,
You don't leave Lee,
the issues
who were
at
there,
Castleford-
to go to Castleford here unless there's something tragically gone wrong at Lee, which...
The issues at Castleford are not about the team or the coach. It's about what can you spend and when the hell are you going to repair your facility to a Super League standard. And don't say that, they're already
Put some
grade
seats on
A.
that terrace
They're
then.
grade A.
Yeah.
The long-term prognosis is that ground, they have to do what Wakefield have done, what Hull KR have done, something like what Lee have done, which again, Lee in concert with a local council who are building a facility. But the long-term prognosis for Castleford, they cannot generate enough income with the facility that they've got to spend the salary cap and be a sustainable Super League team. And whilst ever you're going to fanny around and keep sacking your coach, you're missing the point.
Craig Sandercock, Tony Smith.
Well,
the other Tony Smith.
they could go to Australia and get someone we've never heard of.
Probably more
And what's
likely.
the point?
That fellow who's playing at Hunslet from Salford.
Somebody a coach in the Queensland.
Queensland
Dean Muir.
Players.
Dean Muir's available.
Any other coaches we can think of?
But
It doesn't matter
it's
now,
not
you're
the
right.
issue.
Now. Mark Applegarth. Did a great job at York.
I worry for
So then
Danny.
who left?
What does Danny do now?
Castle.
Where's Danny's next? Where's Danny's next job?
Well, I think that's difficulty when you go quite early in your coaching career to get a head coach's role. I actually don't think it's the smart thing to do.
No.
A bit like Lee Breers at St Helens, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, assistant now at St Helens. Whether he wants to be a head coach, I don't know. But if you want to be in coaching for a while, you've probably got to do at least 10 years as an assistant to then get 10 years as a head coach.
But when you get removed as a head coach, where's your next role? Danny Ward.
He's not going to go back to Cass, is he?
You
Got a
could
nice
just
little
throwing
KR.
names, just
I know.
throwing names in.
I know. I mean, I've just thrown a lot of people. I might as well list some dead coaches as well and throw them in. It's not going to happen, is it? But
I worry.
as you say, they've
London.
made a decision which, in effect, you could see happening, but will make no difference whatsoever.
But again, it goes back to expectation. Where did they expect to be this year? Did they honestly think they were a top 16 with the squad that they'd recruited? Chris Chester's come in and he's already got rid of some of the people that they bought in for this year.
So who bought those players in? Because I'm assuming it's not the coach.
But the point is, manage your expectation. Don't now. If the statement says we're disappointed because we lost a game, like. Yeah, fine. You were awful.
Yeah, but Huddersfield are on the up, aren't they? You know, you've got to look at their results and the performances.
On a very slowing.
It was a
Yeah.
shocking game.
I know it was.
Castleford were awful. Huddersfield didn't need to be brilliant to beat an awful Castleford.
But they beat
if
Wigan.
you're gonna sack
Nearly beat Wigan.
If you're going to
didn't
sack a coach on the back of one result, I'd be more concerned about why nobody's turning up watching Castleford at the moment.
Yeah, you mentioned that last week.
You know, you look at that main stand, even at kick-off time, there's very few people in it.
Cast remind me of West Tigers. They tiny grounds. They can't generate enough
Benji
money, and they
Marshall.
keep changing their head coaches. Says Phil, our Salford friend, who of course play Castleford this week in Sunday's big game. Now, oh,
Curse of the Tiger.
Paul Rowley looking at it, thinking, "Woof."
That could be my job. If it all goes.
See, we don't know if everything had changed at Wakefield a year earlier. Mark Applegarth might have been a success at Wakefield because he would have had the money and the players, and whatever. But he wouldn't have had Steve Mills. But
Mark
everything's-
Applegarth is clearly a good coach.
Yeah.
But he didn't have the personnel to work with.
So, where does Danny McGuire go now?
Well,
There's no point in going to Hunslet or something, is there? Because that's the
Presumably,
same
he has
situation.
to. Paul Deacon. Presumably, he has to be an assistant.
Back at Leeds in some sort
Do you
of
think?
assistant role. I don't know, but you know,
Well,
it's,
Leeds women are looking for an assistant.
it's the kind of club where you could see him going back to because of his
Put the
links to
corns
the
out for their wicket.
But in what role? But again, Leeds need to decide what's happening with Brad Arthur. Whether
which
he's
is a,
staying
which
or
is a farce, as far as I can see. I
Right.
was listening to Radio Leeds on whatever day it was.
Do they still-
Saturday? A little
still,
bit.
still going, are they?
Yeah. Well, I was trying to review the game, the Wakefield game on Radio Leeds. I thought, I can review a game and they can't decide whether it's a red or yellow card, and it was neither. It was just a penalty. Meant I had to review it. No, he said something. There was a short interview, and it was like, oh no, it was apparently Ian Bleaser must have said, was it 6.5 out of 10? I mean, what a ridiculous thing to say.
Me and
Well,
Phil.
it was even more ridiculous because it was on Jenner and John's the bench,
Although it
and
was.
clearly he wasn't going to give an answer, but they were pressing him for an answer, and they said out of 10, and he actually said 6.523. That's how much
God.
it wasn't a direct
On a
measure.
scale of 2 to 9.
Yes.
We were in the press conference the other week. We said it on here. He was asked about it. He said something about his family, and I took that as saying, "There's an obvious answer here. He can't say it. No one can say it. We know what's going to happen. There's no point pushing it because nothing's going to change until it does."
The club must know the outcome, because Brad Arthur was then speaking, saying, "Well, one day, I'm quite happy here, and the next day I want to be back at home with my sons." And I was a bit like, "Well, I'm not being funny. If this is actually the truth, somebody at the club just needs to say, right, Brad, thank you for your efforts, but we need to move forward for
There
next
is
season." And
one other thing as well. At the moment, no NRL club is looking for a coach. Mm-hmm. So the one club that was Perth because they're the new club, and he was interviewed for the job. The fact that he didn't get it. So when Newcastle sat their coach, and when Gold Coast sat their coach, and when West Tigers sat their coach, he's going to be the candidate number one, isn't he? So
I know.
he can't say anything at the moment. The club can't say anything.
But how does Leeds plan? How do Leeds plan for
Leeds-
next year?
The interesting thing for Leeds is, even if he stays for another year, it doesn't solve their problem. That he came originally for 10 games to assess the club effectively, which is a great idea. He was kicking his heels at home. He's really experienced. You want to bring somebody in that's going to have an unjaundiced eye about what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. Bring Brad Arthur in. Fantastic idea. They then went on a little bit of an improved run towards the end of the last season. Would you mind staying another year? Well, I'm not doing anything else. You're looking after me. The family are coming over. Apart from my sons who are in the NRL, I'll do a year. If he does another year, which would, he might say the team playing well, like this group of players and so kids that we've got coming through, we might win a grand final next year. So I'm going to stay. It still doesn't solve the problem because he's going home.
No, but you see, that's where for me you should have somebody under Brad Arthur's wing who I don't even know who their assistant is.
Jamie
actually.
Langley.
So, but whether they're guiding him to become a future head coach, because if I was Leeds, that's exactly what I would have in mind. It's an experienced coach that's been around the block and is not going to be there. We all know he's not going to be there for that long. So bring somebody through.
I'm just saying that whether he stays or goes doesn't solve Leeds' problem.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get through these new clubs in Super League next year, Bradford should appoint him as assistant to Brian Noble, Danny McGuire, that is, or London with Mike Eccles, because he's got the connection there with Mr. Hetherington.
Yeah.
So started talking about Castleford, ended up talking about Leeds, because that's how it works in West Yorkshire. Castleford 12, Huddersfield 30 was a dreadful game of rugby league. Is that fair? I don't know, but I didn't enjoy it. 12 all at half time. Huddersfield ran away with it in the second half. It's the maths, right? If someone beats a boxer, then the other boxer beats another boxer, then that boxer should beat that boxer. So how bad were Huddersfield the week before to lose 38-0 at Catalans, who were dreadful at Wakefield, and how bad are Castleford to be beaten easily by Huddersfield?
But who nearly beat Wigan?
It's all a
Huddersfield
mess.
nearly beat Wigan.
Huddersfield, as you say,
Yeah.
Huddersfield are getting some more players back. They're starting to look like a side that has a little bit of an identity. I think a lot of what Luke Robinson has said while things were not going well reminded me a little bit of Mark Applegarth. That he knew that they were going to go through a period of instability. He was new to the role, but he believed in the principles of what they were trying to do and what the club was trying to do, and the way they were trying to do it. It just wasn't working, and they'd run over a black cat and walked under a ladder, and they were getting injuries to key players. There's still some question mark over some of their recruitment, but clearly they've re-signed Zach Wolford because he's been the kind of player that they still want.
Simon Wolford.
Yes.
Another one.
Presumably he's not doing anything. And he did used to quite
He's
like the
like the programme, yeah. Come back, Simon.
But so I think there was always a slight trajectory that Huddersfield were going to do a little bit like Lee did last year. They were going to have a horrible opening to the season. They just couldn't get anything right. But at some point when enough good players came back, it would start to improve. You'd see it would get better. And they're not going to do what Lee did last year and then go on a ridiculous run and make the playoffs. But Castleford aren't doing that, and I think that showed up on Thursday night. That Castleford were a team that are so inconsistent that you don't know what you're going to get from one week to the next. Yeah. Huddersfield, interesting this week. Huddersfield go to Wigan. Now you would say, in all likelihood, Wigan have been away for 6 weeks. They've not been consistent. They've looked a little bit vulnerable. The whole night is devoted to Sir Billy. It'll be a fabulous night at Wigan. You would think Wigan would want to respond with a home foot. The team I probably wouldn't want to be playing at the moment if I haven't got all my confidence is Huddersfield, because everybody will write them off, and they'll go there and say we nearly beat them 3 weeks ago. Yeah. Why should we fear them?
It's about time we played them again.